They said the Alpha never bled, that no blade, no beast, no betrayal could ever touch him, until the night an Omega girl broke every law to save his life. The Silvermoon Pack had rules older than the moon itself, laws carved in bone and blood, whispered to every pup before they could even shift. The first rule was clear: Alphas do not bond with Omegas. It was a law that kept the pack stable and hearts in cages. Amara had spent her life obeying it. A quiet healer tucked away in a moss-covered hut at the edge of the territory. She mended wounds that were never meant to heal and hid feelings that were never meant to surface. Her world was one of silence, the scrape of pestles against stone, the crackle of her fire, the whisper of herbs hanging from her rafters. But peace is a fragile thing in a world of wolves. That night the forest roared. Rogues, wild, starving beasts driven by madness, descended upon the borderlands. Their howls split the air, feral and desperate. Amara had been gathering moonroot when she heard the clash of claws and steel. Against every instinct, she ran toward the sound. Through the fog and firelight, she saw him. Alpha Kael. He was a force of nature, every motion sharp, deliberate, lethal. His pack surrounded him, but even from a distance, she could sense the strain in his movements, the way his aura flickered with exhaustion. Then, before she could call out, a rogue lunged from the shadows, a blade flashing in its hand. Kael turned too late. Amara didn't think. She just moved. Her body collided with his, shoving him out of the blade's path. The steel tore across her side instead, slicing through flesh. Pain exploded, white and searing. She stumbled but didn't fall until Kael caught her. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Her blood soaked his hands. His wolf's growl trembled through her bones. Their eyes met, gold against storm grey, and something ancient stirred between them, something no law could suppress. When she woke, she was in the Alpha's chamber. The scent of cedar and smoke wrapped around her, dizzying and unfamiliar. The wound on her side was bound, clean and glowing faintly from healing herbs she didn't own. And he was there. Sitting by the fire, his gaze fixed on her like a storm about to break. "You should have stayed away," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You risked your life for me." "You would have died," she whispered. "I'm Alpha," he said. "You're Omega. You don't—" He stopped himself, his jaw tightening. Even his wolf growled at the lie. She sat up slowly. "I don't what, feel, think, matter." Kael's eyes darkened, his control slipping for just a second. "Don't say that. You matter more than you know." That admission hung heavy in the room. Both knew it shouldn't have been spoken. Both knew the punishment for such words: exile for her, disgrace for him. But the bond that pulsed between them didn't care for rules or rank. When the moonlight spilled across her face, his wolf surged forward, whispering a single word in his mind: "Mate." Kael rose abruptly, turning his back to her. His shoulders trembled, every muscle taut with restraint. "This can't happen," he muttered. "You'll stay here until your wound heals. After that, you'll forget this night ever happened." But Amara knew. You can't forget what's written into your soul. Outside, the forest still burned. Inside, two hearts did the same, each fighting the pull of something older than law, deeper than fear. And somewhere beyond the walls of the Alpha's den, the elders stirred, sensing that something sacred had just been broken. If you're still here and already feeling the pull of this forbidden bond, don't forget to subscribe. More heart-stopping twists and dark secrets await in the next episode. Because in Silvermoon Pack, love isn't just forbidden, it's deadly. The night after the attack, Silvermoon was eerily quiet. Smoke from burned trees curled above the forest, like ghosts refusing to leave. The pack gathered to count their dead, their wounded, and to whisper about the healer who had saved their Alpha's life. Amara could feel those whispers long before she heard them. Everywhere she walked, eyes followed. Wolves paused mid-conversation. Mothers pulled their pups closer. Her name, soft as breath, sharp as a blade, floated through the air. The Omega who touched the Alpha. The girl who broke the law. She told herself not to care. She told herself it didn't matter. But as she mixed herbs in silence, she couldn't stop hearing his heartbeat, steady and deep in her memory, like it still echoed through her. Kael, on the other hand, was unraveling. He tried to bury himself in duty, training the border guards, settling disputes, pretending his world hadn't shifted when Amara's blood stained his hands. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her again, her trembling lips, her steady courage, the moment her pain became his. It should have been easy. Gratitude. That's all it was. That's what he told himself. But gratitude doesn't make your wolf pace restlessly in the night, snarling for a scent that isn't there. Days passed. And then one evening, when the moonlight turned the forest silver, Kael's control broke. He told himself he was only checking on her recovery, only ensuring the healer who saved him was safe. But when he reached the hut at the edge of the woods, her scent hit him like a storm. Wild honey and pine smoke. Amara froze when he entered. "Alpha," she whispered, standing so quickly that her chair scraped the floor. Kael's gaze softened. "You don't need to call me that when we're alone." "That's all I should call you," she replied quietly. He stepped closer, the air between them tightening. The faint glow from the hearth painted his face in gold and shadow. "You're healing well?" "Yes." Her voice trembled, betraying her heart. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." He hesitated, every word heavier than breath. "But I couldn't stay away." The confession hung between them like forbidden fire. Amara's pulse quickened. She could feel it. The pull. The invisible thread that tied her soul to his. Every beat of her heart made his wolf stir restlessly beneath his skin. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to reach for her. "This bond," she said softly, "it's not real. It can't be. Maybe it's just a side effect of what happened that night." Kael shook his head. "No. My wolf doesn't lie." He took another step closer. "He calls for you, Amara. Every night." Her breath caught. "Then make him stop." "If I could," Kael said, voice breaking, "I would have already." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and change. Inside, they stood inches apart, trapped between what they felt and what they feared. Then, footsteps. Kael turned sharply as a beta guard appeared at the doorway, bowing low but stealing a quick, suspicious glance at Amara. "Alpha," he said, "the council requests your presence. They've heard rumors." Kael's jaw tightened. "Rumors?" The beta hesitated. "That you've been seen visiting the healer's hut. At night." A dangerous silence fell. Kael dismissed him with a curt nod, waiting until the door shut before turning back to her. "They're watching," he murmured. "If they suspect anything, they'll come for you first." Amara's chest ached. "Then don't come back." Kael met her gaze, eyes burning gold under the firelight. "And if I don't?" "Then you'll live," she said, forcing the words past her trembling lips. "And so will I." He stared at her for a long, silent moment, then turned and walked into the storm. That night, Amara tried to sleep. She couldn't. Every whisper of wind against her window felt like his presence. Every thunderclap reminded her of his heartbeat. And far away in the Alpha's manor, Kael stood alone by the window, his wolf clawing beneath his skin, furious and yearning. The rain lashed against the glass like it too demanded release. He could almost hear her heartbeat through the storm. He pressed a hand to his chest, whispering to himself, "Stay away from her. For her sake. For the pack." But the beast inside him only laughed, because the wolf didn't understand law or reason. It only understood one truth. She was his. And as dawn approached, a single howl echoed across the valley, raw, mournful, and hungry. The pack stirred uneasily in their sleep, never realizing the sound came not from the wilds beyond their walls, but from their Alpha himself. The Silver Moon pack gathered beneath the open sky for the moon oath, the sacred ritual that bound every wolf to the pack for another cycle. Fires burned in tall iron bowls, their light licking at the darkness as drums echoed through the forest. The night smelled of pine, smoke, and tension. Amara stood at the edge of the gathering, her hood pulled low. She wasn't meant to be there. Healers rarely attended the Alpha's rituals, but duty had called. One of the younger wolves had fallen ill, and she'd been summoned to bring herbs and tend to him. She told herself that's all she was there for, that she would leave as soon as her task was done. But when Kael stepped into the clearing, all thought scattered. He was a vision of dominance and restraint, bare-chested beneath the silver light, the mark of the Alpha carved across his skin like a promise of power. Every wolf knelt as he passed, every gaze lowered, except hers. For just a heartbeat, he met her eyes across the fire. It was a small, dangerous act, one that did not go unnoticed. The elders watched. The betas exchanged wary glances. The drums slowed. The air grew heavier. Kael began the ritual, his voice deep and resonant, as he spoke the ancient vow of leadership. Each phrase bound him further to the pack's laws, to strength, to loyalty, to control. But as he lifted the ceremonial dagger to make the blood offering, his wolf stirred violently beneath his skin. He could hear her heartbeat again, the same rhythm that haunted his dreams. He tried to steady himself, tried to ignore it, but the sound grew louder, matching his pulse until it drowned out the world. His wolf surged forward, furious, wild, claiming what it believed was his. And then it happened, so fast no one could stop it. Kael's eyes flashed molten gold. His voice dropped into a growl. In one swift motion, he crossed the circle, shattering every rule written in their blood. His hand caught Amara's wrist, dragging her close. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The fire roared higher, sparks bursting into the night. Kael's wolf, half shifted now, his teeth bared and his breath hot against her skin, lowered his head toward the place where her neck met her shoulder, the spot where mates were marked. "Kael," she whispered, trembling. "Don't." But he couldn't hear her. The wolf was in control, its hunger eclipsing reason. His claws grazed her skin, his breath turning ragged. One bite, 1 second. That's all it would take to seal her fate. Then, a voice cut through the air. "Alpha!" It was Darius, his beta. He stepped forward, his voice shaking but firm. "You're losing control. The pack is watching." Kael froze. The moment cracked like glass. The drums stopped. The crowd's murmurs swelled into fear. And in that silence, Amara's tears fell. Not from pain, but from the weight of what almost happened. Kael's breathing slowed. His claws retracted. His golden eyes faded back to gray. When he finally looked at her, horror filled his face. He had almost claimed her, in front of everyone. The elders rose, their voices cold and cutting. "Alpha Kael, what meaning does this have? Has your wolf forgotten the laws of Silvermoon?" He bowed his head, forcing composure back into his trembling hands. "It was an accident. The wolf, An accident?" Elder Rowan's voice dripped with suspicion. Or a confession of a forbidden bond? The murmurs grew sharper now. Rumors took shape in the crowd like smoke. Amara took a step back, heart racing. Every gaze felt like a blade pressed to her throat. She could already see how this would end. Kael stripped of his title, the pack thrown into chaos, her executed for witchcraft or treason. She turned and fled. The forest swallowed her. The cold bit at her skin as she ran, branches clawing at her cloak. Tears blurred her vision, but she didn't stop. If she stayed, she'd destroy him. If she left, maybe he'd survive this. Behind her, the ritual site erupted into chaos. Voices clashing, the elders shouting, the Alpha's name echoing in the air like thunder. Kael tried to follow, but Darius blocked his path. "Don't," he warned. "The pack's watching. If you chase her now, they'll see it as betrayal." Kael's jaw tightened. "She's out there alone." "I know," Darius said quietly. "But if you go after her, you'll doom you both. Let her go. For now." Kael turned toward the forest, his chest rising and falling with rage and anguish. His wolf howled inside him, demanding to find her, to protect her, to finish what had begun. But he forced himself to stay rooted. Every second was agony. Finally he whispered, If she doesn't come back, Darius, I'll burn the world to find her. Amara stumbled deeper into the woods until her legs gave out. She collapsed beside a stream, clutching her cloak around her like it could keep her heart from breaking apart. The moonlight shimmered on the water, rippling with her reflection, haunted, lost, and glowing faintly with the remnants of Kael's aura still clinging to her skin. Her hand brushed her neck where his wolf had almost marked her. It wasn't a scar, but it burned. "Forget him," she whispered to the trees. "Forget everything." But destiny was already moving, quietly, relentlessly, through the shadows of Silvermoon. Because while Amara fled to protect him, something ancient had awakened that night. And as the blood moon rose on the horizon, its crimson light touched the Alpha's mark that wasn't there yet, promising that before this story ended, it would be. The forest hadn't been silent since Amara fled. Every night since the ritual, the wind carried whispers, half legend, half warning. Wolves swore they heard the Alpha's howl echo through the mountains, restless and unending. Others claimed they'd seen a silver figure moving through the woods, untouched by claw or hunger. But Amara didn't hear the rumors. She was too busy surviving them. Days blurred into nights. Her cloak had torn, her hands raw from gathering herbs and building fires. Yet the deeper she went into the wilderness, the stronger she felt. Like the forest itself knew her name. Something was changing inside her. On the 7th night, the moon rose red. A blood moon, rare, ancient and powerful. The kind that legends said unveiled hidden truths. Amara sat by the stream where she'd collapsed days ago, watching the crimson glow ripple across the water. Her reflection shimmered faintly, then blurred. For a moment, she thought it was a trick of exhaustion, until the air shifted. A voice, soft and aged as wind through stone, spoke from behind her. "Running from fate never works, child of Nightclaw." She spun around. An old woman stood at the edge of the clearing, cloaked in silver-threaded fur. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, half moon, half fire. She wasn't from Silvermoon. No healer or elder from Kael's pack carried that scent. "Who are you?" Amara demanded, her heartbeat quickening. The woman smiled faintly. "One who knew your mother." "My mother?" The word felt foreign. Amara had never known her parents. She'd grown up among strangers, told she was an orphan taken in by mercy. The woman stepped closer, the air thickening with magic. "You were never a Silvermoon pup. You are the blood of Nightclaw, the true heir of the pack Kael's ancestors destroyed, hidden among his people to protect you from slaughter." Amara's breath caught. "That can't be true." The woman's hand lifted, brushing a thumb across Amara's cheek. Her skin burned where they touched, symbols flaring faintly along her collarbone, ancient runes shaped like claws, glowing red beneath the blood moon. "It was sealed within you," the woman said. "Your lineage, your power. Dormant until the Alpha of Silvermoon claimed your heart. The bond between you two," she paused, eyes glinting with something close to awe, "is not forbidden, child. It is foretold." Amara's mind spun. "Foretold." "Yes," the woman said, voice almost reverent. "The prophecy of the twin moons. When the Alpha of the Sun and the heir of the Shadow unite, their bond will either bring peace to the divided packs or burn the world in their passion." Amara staggered back, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible. I'm just a healer. I never wanted—" "You don't get to want destiny," the woman interrupted. "You can only choose how it ends." Before Amara could reply, the woman's body dissolved into mist, leaving behind a single silver pendant that shimmered like liquid moonlight. She picked it up, and for a heartbeat, she saw flashes, images that weren't her own. A dark fortress surrounded by snow, wolves bowing to a throne carved from bone, a woman with eyes like her own, clutching an infant wrapped in crimson silk. Then, Kael's face, his eyes burning gold, and behind him, fire. The next morning, Amara found herself standing at the edge of the silver moon border again, her body pulled there by something she couldn't fight. The pendant around her neck pulsed like a heartbeat, She could feel him, Kael, restless and breaking beneath the weight of what he'd done. She told herself to turn back, to disappear before anyone found her. But fate, once woken, doesn't sleep again. A rustle of leaves, and suddenly he was there, emerging from the fog like a ghost she'd tried to bury. Kael looked worse than she remembered. His once proud stance was shadowed by exhaustion, his jaw dark with stubble, his clothes torn as though he'd been searching for her without rest. When his gaze landed on her, the world stopped. "You came back," he breathed. "No," she said quietly. "I think destiny dragged me." He stepped forward, then stopped, the space between them charged. "You shouldn't be here. The elders are watching everything I do." "I know who I am now," she whispered. His eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "I'm not one of your pack, Kael." Her hand rose to touch the pendant at her throat. "I'm Nightclaw." The words hit him like a blow. For a long time, he said nothing. Then, "That's impossible." Nightclaw was destroyed. Every heir was hidden, she interrupted softly. "Not dead. They hid me. Among your kind." Kael's wolf stirred violently beneath his skin. "If the council finds out—" "They already suspect," Amara said. "But it doesn't matter. You and I, we were never a mistake. It's a prophecy. The blood moon revealed it." Kael's hands clenched at his sides. "A prophecy?" She nodded. "Two souls born under opposing moons, bound by fate. We can unite the packs, or destroy them." For a heartbeat, Kael looked at her like a man seeing the dawn after years of darkness. Then, slowly, his expression hardened. "They'll never allow it. To them, you're the enemy. If they find out who you are, they'll kill you before the next moonrise." Amara's voice trembled. "Then what do we do?" He stepped closer, his eyes dark and certain. "We don't run anymore." "But your pack—" "My pack will have to learn the truth," Kael said, his voice steady. "That their alpha is done being their puppet." He took her hand. The touch sent a shiver through both of them, light and shadow colliding. "Whatever this prophecy means," he murmured, "we face it together." Above them, the blood moon pulsed brighter, its light spilling across their joined hands. Unseen by either of them, deep in the forest, the elders' spies watched from the shadows, eyes gleaming with fury. The prophecy had begun, and every pack in the land was about to bleed for it. The morning after the blood moon, Silver Moon, was no longer the same. The forest smelled of iron and storm. Patrols doubled, messengers rode day and night, and fear crept into every corner of the pack's lands. The truth had slipped from whispers into wildfire. The Alpha's forbidden mate was not one of them, but the lost heir of their oldest enemy. Kael felt the shift in the air before anyone spoke it aloud. Loyalty that once surrounded him now felt brittle. Wolves lowered their eyes out of duty, not respect. The council chamber, once filled with voices of counsel, now reeked of suspicion. And when the news reached the outer territories, the Nightclaw banners began to rise again. Amara tried to leave before the fighting began. She begged Kael not to risk his throne, not to lose his people for her. But fate, like the bond between them, wouldn't break cleanly. On the second night after the revelation, she was taken. They came under moonlight, Elder Rowan's guards, masked and merciless. Amara had barely time to reach for her satchel before they bound her wrists in silver chains, her screams swallowed by the forest. When Kael found her hut empty, rage shattered what little restraint he had left. His roar shook the den walls. His wolf surged forward, demanding blood. "Where is she?" Darius stood at the door, grim-faced. "The council took her. They say she's a Nightclaw spy. They plan to—" Kael didn't wait for him to finish. He was already gone. They dragged Amara to the council square, the heart of Silver Moon territory, where the pack once swore fealty to their alpha. Now, under torchlight and judgment, she stood in chains before them, betrayed by the land she had once healed. The elders surrounded her like vultures. Elder Rowan spoke first, his voice sharp as frost. "You were taken in by this pack as a child of mercy. You healed our wounded, ate our food, wore our mark, All the while you carried the blood of our enemies. What else should we call that but treachery?" Amara met his gaze, trembling but unbroken. "I never lied. I didn't know who I was until the blood moon." "Lies!" Rowan's staff struck the stone. "You seduced our Alpha to weaken him. You turned his will, made him defy our laws." Her heart cracked. "No. He defied them because he loved me." A collective gasp spread through the crowd. Wolves whispered, anger and confusion twisting together. Rowan's eyes gleamed. "Then he is no Alpha. He is a fool." That was when Kael arrived. The great hall doors burst open, wood splintering against stone. The guards turned too late. He moved like thunder, every step an earthquake. His wolf glimmered beneath his skin, barely contained, dangerous. "Enough," Kael growled. The crowd parted in silence. Rowan sneered. "You come to defend her again. Your word means nothing now, Kael. You've broken every sacred law." "I've upheld the one that matters," Kael said, his voice low but steady. "The one that keeps us more than beasts. The one that says we protect the innocent." Rowan slammed his staff again. "She is not innocent. She is Nightclaw." Kael stepped forward until his shadow swallowed the elders. "Then so be it. If loving her makes me a traitor, I'll wear that brand with pride." Before anyone could move, he struck. The chains that bound Amara shattered under his claws. The guards lunged, but Kael moved faster, his wolf rising fully now, golden eyes burning. Blood hit the floor. Darius appeared beside him, sword drawn, shouting over the chaos. "Kael, stop! You'll start a war!" Kael turned, his voice raw. "The war's already started." He caught Amara's arm, pulling her close. Her breath hitched as their eyes met. Pain, relief, and something deeper passing between them. "Why?" she whispered. "You'll lose everything." He brushed his forehead against hers, the sound of fighting swelling around them. "Everything means nothing without you." Then he said it, quietly, fiercely, as if the world itself might break from the weight of it. "I love you. Not as Alpha, not as leader, as a man who can't breathe without you." For a heartbeat, time stilled. Then the council's horns sounded, summoning every warrior in Silver Moon. By dawn the pack had split. Some followed the elders, swearing to preserve the laws. Others stood behind their Alpha, believing in the bond he'd chosen. Silver Moon bled. The forest that once echoed with unity now trembled with war cries. Wolves tore through the night, brothers against brothers, the air thick with the scent of betrayal. Kael fought with a fury none had ever seen. His wolf rose larger than it had any right to be, glowing gold beneath the storm. Each strike, each roar carried one truth: he would destroy anyone who threatened her. And Amara, though bound by fear, refused to hide. The power within her, the legacy of Nightclaw, finally woke. Silver light flowed beneath her skin, weaving through the wounds of Kael's soldiers, pulling life where death had already crept close. Her healing came with pain. Each life she saved drained her strength. But she didn't stop, because every time she looked at him bleeding and fierce in the chaos, she saw what he was fighting for. Her. By nightfall, Kael stood over the broken remains of the council's guard, panting, his wolf's glow dimming with exhaustion. Darius approached through the smoke, his armor scorched. "This can't go on," Darius said quietly. "If you don't stop, there won't be a pack left to lead." Kael stared at the blood on his hands. "Then I'll build a new one that doesn't live in chains." Behind him, Amara stumbled, weak but alive. Her eyes glowed faintly with the same light as the blood moon. "You've lost too much for me," she whispered. Kael turned to her, his voice rough but certain. "No, I finally know what's worth losing everything for." Then, in the distance, the war drums of Nightclaw sounded, deep, ancient, echoing across the valley. The enemy had arrived, not as legend, but as vengeance. And under the rising smoke and blood-colored sky, Kael lifted his head and let out a howl that shook the heavens, a call not of surrender, but of promise. The wolf inside him was no longer bound by law. It was bound by fate, and it would burn the world before it let her go. The night before the final battle, Silver Moon stood on the edge of ruin. The once proud territory now lay scarred, forests burned to ash, rivers choked with smoke, and the scent of blood thick in the air. The war drums of Nightclaw thundered from the east, answering Silvermoon's cries with fury. Kael stood upon the ridge overlooking the valley, the same ridge where he had first sworn to protect his pack, to uphold the laws of the old world. Now those very laws had turned against him. Below, his wolves gathered in silence, their eyes reflecting the flickering flames of campfires. They were tired, wounded, but loyal, to him, not the elders. Darius approached, his armor dented, his expression grim. "They're coming," he said softly. "Thousands. The Nightclaw want her back, Kael, and the Council. What's left of them? They want her dead." Kael didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted to the far horizon, where the crimson shimmer of the blood moon began to rise once more, a cruel reminder of the bond that had started it all. "Then tonight decides everything," he said finally. "No more hiding, no more laws, just truth." Amara stood not far away, cloaked in the silver light of the moon. Her wounds had mostly healed, but her spirit bore scars no healer could touch. The weight of her lineage pressed heavily on her, a legacy she never asked for, a destiny written long before her first breath. She watched Kael in silence, the firelight painting gold along his jaw, and for a moment she allowed herself to remember who they used to be, a healer and a king, bound by accident, fighting a bond neither understood. Now they were something else entirely. When Kael finally turned toward her, she met his gaze without flinching. "You don't have to fight them all," she whispered. "If I go to them, if I surrender, maybe the bloodshed will stop." Kael crossed the distance in 2 strides, his voice rough. "Don't you dare. You think I've bled and killed and defied the gods themselves just to lose you now?" Her eyes glistened. "You'll die for me." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing the faint mark on her neck, the mark he had nearly given her the night he lost control. "Then let me," he said quietly, "if it means you live free." Tears welled, but Amara shook her head fiercely. "No, not this time. I'm done running. If the blood moon made us its curse, then we'll make it our strength." Kael's heart surged with something fierce and eternal. He could feel his wolf beneath his skin, restless but reverent, as if bowing to the storm that was her. "Then we fight," he said. The first howl split the night as the armies clashed beneath the blood moon. Nightclaw warriors poured into the valley, their pelts dark as shadow, their eyes blazing red. Silvermoon's wolves met them in a storm of claws and fury, the air thick with howls and steel. Kael led from the front, his wolf blazing gold through the chaos, a living flame cutting through darkness. Each strike was for his people, each roar was for her. But even as he tore through his enemies, he knew the true war wasn't against Nightclaw or the elders. It was against the curse that bound their worlds apart. High above the battlefield, Amara stood at the heart of a circle of silver light. Her hands trembled as the ground pulsed beneath her feet. She could feel it, the ancient magic of her bloodline awakening. The same power that once destroyed kingdoms now answered to her call. Her vision blurred as the moonlight poured through her veins. She felt Kael's heartbeat echoing with hers, a rhythm too perfect to be coincidence. The bond between them had always been more than instinct. It was destiny. When Kael stumbled, struck down by a rogue's blade, Amara screamed. The power inside her erupted like a storm. The battlefield froze. Wolves halted mid-charge, eyes widening in awe and terror. Silver light tore across the sky, spilling through the clouds. Amara floated above the ground, her eyes glowing with pure moonfire. Her voice rang out, ancient and unearthly, the language of the old packs, one forgotten by time. Every wolf felt it, their instincts bowing before something older than law, older than rank. Kael lifted his head weakly, his blood mixing with the dirt. "Amara, stop. It'll kill you." Her gaze softened as she looked down at him. "Then I'll die setting us free." But instead of fading, her light reached toward him, not to take but to give. It wrapped around him like a second skin, merging the glow of silver and gold into one, their souls connected, not by the bite of a mark, but by something greater. Every wolf in the valley felt it, the pulse of a new bond that defied hierarchy, rank, and blood. Kael rose again, power coursing through him. His wounds closed in seconds. His wolf, once golden, now shimmered with streaks of silver. Her essence fused with his. Together they stood, Alpha and Omega, no longer separate, no longer forbidden. Their combined howl shattered the sky. The battlefield stilled. The Nightclaw and Silver Moon warriors dropped their weapons, eyes wide, their instincts kneeling before the force they could not comprehend. And then, as if nature itself answered, the blood moon dimmed. The crimson hue softened into pale white, the curse undone. When dawn finally broke, the valley was silent. Smoke rose from the ruins, but peace, fragile and new, settled over the land. Wolves from both sides gathered in weary silence as Kael and Amara stood together amid the ashes. Kael's arm was wrapped around her shoulders. Both were scarred, blood-streaked but alive. Elder Rowan's body lay among the fallen, his staff shattered, a relic of an age that no longer ruled. Darius approached, his face streaked with dirt and disbelief. "They're kneeling," he said softly. Indeed, across the valley, wolves from every pack, Silver Moon, Nightclaw, even the rogues, had dropped to one knee, not in submission, but recognition. Kael looked out at them, voice carrying through the quiet. "The laws that chained us are broken. The old world died under this moon. What we build next, we build together." A murmur rippled through the crowd, cautious, trembling, but hopeful. Amara reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "And if they refuse?" she whispered. Kael smiled faintly. "Then we show them what freedom looks like." She leaned against him, eyes closing as the first rays of morning touched the battlefield. For the first time the air didn't reek of fear or death, only renewal. The blood moon had cursed them, but love had rewritten the prophecy. As the new sun rose, Silver Moon and Nightclaw buried their dead side by side. The packs swore an oath not to the laws of the past, but to the unity forged in the fire of the forbidden. Kael turned to Amara, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "What happens now?" She smiled softly, her eyes glowing with quiet strength. "Now we live. For them. For us." And as the light spread across the valley, the Alpha and his once forbidden mate stood together, bruised, scarred, but unbroken, bound not by law, not by blood, but by the choice they made when the world tried to tear them apart. They were the beginning of a new age, one born not from power, but from love. And beneath the fading moon, their howls rose once more, not as a call to war, but as a promise to the dawn.